Welcome back to the Momentum Sports Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Israel, and this is the show where ownership, real estate, and the future of sports come together. I'm really excited about today's guest, Stephen Young, who's the senior executive at FC Cincinnati. And we're going to talk all things FC Cincinnati, the asset class of sports, soccer, stadium development, mixed-use real estate development. Cincinnati has an incredible project going up around, what is one of the best, if not the best, soccer stadiums, both domestically and globally, with TQL Stadium. We'll talk about some of the features that stadium has and what makes it so unique. And I'm genuinely looking forward to where this conversation goes. So with that, let's jump right into it. Alrighty, Stephen Young, thank you for joining the Momentum Sports Podcast today, all the way from London, which is not where you typically are. We've actually traded places. I've left Europe and come here to the US, and you've gone the other direction. What's going on in London that brings you over there?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. First of all, thanks for having me on here. No, we're here just for, a myriad of meetings. And then also, we're here for the FIFA Women's Champions Cup. So that, is the final is on Sunday. And so, should be a great time.
Is that match, that cup, that tournament, is that more salient these days, the women's side of the sport? Is that something you would have gone to in the past? How has the women's game generally caught your attention, here recently?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I helped lead our bid alongside of our leadership team here for the NWSL. Unfortunately lost to Denver. But through all of that, got to know so many people inside of women's soccer that, have become not only friends, but also just great colleagues and thought partners. And, and for me, once you got to know all those folks, it's been something that's been awesome to build inside of and work on and help with. So for me, it's just been, kind of just a fun experience of, understanding the game. How can you build? How can you grow inside of the game? And so the women's game is, oh my God. I mean, if you think about it 5 years ago, outside the U.S. women's national team, it wasn't what it is today. And now it's, you've got global superstars. Not that you didn't have global superstars, but now, with, club teams, you have global superstars. Obviously our Cincinnati's own Rose Lavelle, was the player of the year last year. And so, it's just what the game has done over the last 5 years has been unbelievable. And then also I think, over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be so much unlock, not only for the players and the athletes, but for investors as well. So I think it's going to be a very interesting opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. We can maybe circle back to that here in a little bit. Before we get into FC Cincinnati, Lion Ventures, on our podcast, I'm always interested in hearing more about, the profile of the person that's on the other side of the screen. I know when you graduated from the University of South Carolina, you got into banking, corporate banking, a lot on the relationship management side. Why don't you, for those that are listening that want to get into sports in the future, at an executive level or generally, give some context on how you got into the space, how, kind of cutting your teeth in banking. We know sports is a relationship business. So your background there, like how did that unfold? Did you end up with FC Cincinnati and Lion Ventures by chance? How did that take place?
Yeah, no, I had a very weird way into sports. So my degree, it's from South Carolina, is actually in history and political science. And so I always thought I wanted to move to DC, work, kind of on Capitol Hill, and realize, it probably wasn't for me, to be fair. And now every time I go to DC, I'm like, man, I'm glad I made that decision. But so I funny enough, I met my wife at South Carolina and she drugged me back to Cincinnati. And so I've been here ever since. So I can thank her for it more than anything else. And then, so when I moved to Cincinnati, I needed a job, and a friend of mine, worked at US Bank and was, the managing director at the time, was looking for kind of like a junior banker, if you will. Met with him and he said, look, I can teach you finance in a matter of a year or two. I want the soft skills. And so went into banking. He's still to this day a great mentor of mine, just an amazing guy. Um, and ultimately did that for 5 or 6 years, played around in like the middle market banking space, if you will. Um, and then ultimately I met Jeff Birding, who's the CEO of FC Cincinnati. I worked on a couple of projects with Jeff. One was revitalizing the Cincinnati Sports Commission. And so I wrote the business plan to revitalize the sports commission here in Cincinnati, helped get that back on its feet. And ultimately Jeff being Jeff, you know, we had about 3 or 4 different conversations and he goes, well, in 4 weeks, you're going to come work for FC Cincinnati. And I was like, and do what? Like, I'm a banker. Like, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, matter of fact, go home tonight, write a business plan of what you think you can do at FC Cincinnati. And then you'll start at FC Cincinnati. And so I did. I've always been fascinated in sports. I played sports growing up. And who wouldn't want the opportunity to at least dip their toes in kind of the sports ecosystem? And so, truly, when I got to FC Cincinnati the first day, Jeff handed me like a white Word document that had like a bunch of stuff on there. I was like, what is this? He goes, this is your job. And it was literally just of different ideas that he's had in the past, how he plans to grow and the ambition of FC Cincinnati and the club and all those things. And he said, I need you to start thinking through these things and how do we put these things in one place that actually can make sense. And so I've been there ever since. And so I've been at FCC a little over 2 years now. So I lead all of our growth and corporate development, which sounds better than it is, I would say. So for me, I lead all of our investor relations, help fundraise for the club. I work alongside of our chief revenue officer, Chad Munitz, extremely closely, and our chief business officer, Lindsey Braun, around kind of thinking through how do we want to be, who do we want to be inside the ecosystem of soccer, number one, then also in sports. Jeff, who's our CEO, has incredible ambition to grow this into a multi-sport, multi-asset, sporting company. And so really it's kind of my job to think alongside of that with, our leadership team to, see where and how we can do this for FC Cincinnati.
That's great. I appreciate that background. What I find typically is there's never much of a direct path for those that end up in this space. Yeah. For me, it was absolutely the same, kind of a tapestry of opportunities.
And to be fair, I think I wouldn't have done it any different, right? Like I wouldn't have done it any different. The amount of the valuable time that I got working inside of banking, seeing all these different companies, how these different companies move and function, I was invaluable to when I came over to FC Cincinnati. And what I do, obviously, look at all these different companies now and different investments. It's invaluable, right? You got the training wheels, if you will, like the free MBA of finance, working for these incredible bankers, and then kind of step into the sports world, which, to be fair, is nothing like the banking world, but it is, it was certainly a culture shock as well. So, but it's been great. I wouldn't take it back any other way.
I want to double click here in a little bit on kind of the go forward for FCC, for Lion Ventures. Obviously, you guys, maybe not obvious to the audience, but you guys have heavily leaned into, the real estate opportunity there adjacent to the stadium in Cincinnati. You obviously have one of the more dynamic, tech forward kind of models for stadium development, for stadiums and venues that you guys have created, and we'll dive into that as well. But kind of take me back a little bit with maybe Jeff or just Lion Ventures as a whole. FCC started in the USL, like the last 5 teams that have come into the MLS. A club that was in the USL transitioned and take that step to the MLS. What was the vision for Jeff, for the team? Was it always, hey, let's establish ourselves in the USL, let's kind of build organically within the community and position ourselves to have an opportunity to join the league?
Yeah.
Like, how did that process take shape? Was it the goal from the beginning to get into the MLS? Walk that down for me.
I don't want to speak for Jeff, but I'll give you like the quick backstory of how, it all came about, if you will. So Jeff worked at Bengals for 20 years, and started to see the rise of soccer. And he'll tell you that his kids were bigger fans of clubs and, I think they're Man U fans. And so they were big fans of Man U. And so they're waking up on Saturday mornings watching this club. And he's like, why doesn't my kids have a team here? right? That just makes total sense to me. And then the rise of soccer. And then Jeff was he was a politician here in Cincinnati for elected to city council 3 times. And so he kind of understood the civic dynamic of the city as well. And then ultimately he jokes that he traded city hall for parent soccer politics, and was on the board of his kids' youth soccer team. And so he saw the rise, and ultimately saw what the NFL did over the 20 years that he was there of maybe there's an incredible opportunity with soccer, especially in our community and especially kind of the rise of soccer. And so I think originally Jeff went around looking for someone to be the controlling owner, and ultimately, had the opportunity to buy the USL club, decided and went and pitched the University of Cincinnati to play it at Nippert Stadium, which is where the University of Cincinnati's football team plays. And as he tells the story, Carl Lindner, who's our controlling owner today, Carl called Jeff and said, I'd like to come alongside of you to be the controlling owner of your team. I'd like to be your partner. And ultimately, Jeff said, well, I'm trying to find a place to play. And I believe the story goes, Carl said, well, I'm on the board of University of Cincinnati, and I just approved to play FC Cincinnati at Nippert Stadium. And so I believe that is how it started. But from an ambitious perspective, Jeff had zero ambition to, play in the minor leagues, if you will, right? I mean no harm to the USL when I say that. I mean, just in general, he always wanted this ambition to be a global club, whether that was in the USL or the MLS. And then ultimately, I think once they got into the USL, I think it decided, okay, hey, I think we want to get in MLS and then try to build a global brand from there. Jeff tells a story based off of, Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point of the first game, 9,000 people. A couple games later, 15,000 people. And then they had a friendly against Crystal Palace. 36,000 people showed up. The most that Ohio, by the way, has ever seen in a first soccer match, right? And so Jeff said that was kind of the tipping point of, oh, wow, like we are a runaway train at this point. And then in 2017, ultimately, they went and presented to the MLS and was approved by the MLS to join the MLS. And there was a couple interesting footnotes about that. We had to build a stadium, and we had to do it in about 9 months. Wow. It was the fastest that anyone had ever moved into the league. And so Jeff being Jeff and Carl being who he is, decided, yeah, we can take this on. We're ready for this. And I think obviously looking back, I know the transition was probably much more difficult than they thought in the time. And some of the guys that are still here that were here at that time just tell those stories, and just thinking about how hard it was to get from where they were to where they had to go. And then also try to build a stadium, not to mention that stadium was built and finalized in 2020. And so their first year of being open was 2020. Wow. And so how difficult was it to not only start a team, hire a new GM, find new players that can play in the MLS, build a stadium, and then ultimately continue to run this soccer club at St. Day. And so it is a very ambitious team, I would say. I would call it very much startup culture, which is something that I thoroughly enjoy. From day one, it was always, we want to build a global soccer brand, and we continue to do that every day.
Incredible story. I mean, there's a lot of groups out there, a lot of individuals that would love to find that success. To your point, pulling off, obviously, Jeff and Carl's relationship with the community, with the local government, the local authorities, bringing back the sports commission, like those are all critical elements to any stadium development, standing up any professional franchise. So it's obvious that the city leaned in as well.
I think it's almost a testament to the city of Cincinnati, right? We love our sports here, just like a lot of other Midwestern cities, right? And when when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, it was one of like the most incredible times to ever be in the city of Cincinnati, right? Or when FCC makes it to the playoffs, or the Reds, when they make it to the playoffs, it is an incredible experience. Opening day for the Reds, 250,000 people just show up for a party, right? They don't go to the game, they just show up for the party. And so it is certainly a sports town. And once kind of the idea of this ambitious soccer club. We want to give you a winner. We want to make a winner here. We want to be known as a winning city. And that's kind of how FC Cincinnati thinks about it, right? Playoffs 4 years in a row. Let's give our city what they deserve a little bit is kind of, I think, was why this worked so well. Was the city was dying for a winner and dying for something to wrap their arms around. And I think Jeff and Carl and all of our team that worked here at that time gave them that. And then, it's been a phenomenal run since then.
Let's double click on TQL Stadium. Obviously, with Momentous, we think through the lens of infrastructure, real estate, stadium development being a part of that. I think from a soccer infrastructure perspective, you're seeing significant work being done across the country, whether it's the USL, the MLS, expansion franchises, NWSL. Like, it's very obvious. Maybe not very obvious. Let me reframe that. It's very clear that having that asset in the stadium itself, which is a revenue generator, by itself, is critical for a number of different reasons. But TQL is often, kind of cited as one of the most forward-thinking venues in the MLS.
Voted best soccer stadium in the world in 2023. So I'll correct you there. There you go.
Which is why I'm going to double click on it even more. What is it about the stadium, the venue, the design? We'll get into what could you have done differently.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing what you know today. I have an idea where that may go, but what was it about? What was important for Jeff, for Carl, for the team, as it related to the stadium to have in place to create, the best environment possible? Was it thinking through the lens of the fan and ensuring that experience was incredible? Was it more revenue generating kind of line of thought? Was it more, how do we monetize this asset on an annual basis outside of the, 17, 18? I don't know what the number of home games you guys have per year are. Like, what were the things that were considered?
Yeah, no, I mean, a couple of things. One, I would certainly say the fans. I mean, I implore anyone to come see the Bailey, which is our supporter section at TQL Stadium. It is one of the most fun environments that you'll ever come to in sports. If you like soccer, then you should absolutely come. Not only see our venue, which I think our venue is gorgeous, but because of the fans and the way we designed it, it is ruckus, it is chaos, it is awesomeness all at the same time. And so it is nothing without the Bailey. And to be fair, FC Cincinnati is nothing without the Bailey and our supporter groups. They are unbelievable. This is their club at the end of the day, right? Like, without them, we don't get hey, we love coming to your venue. God, it was so much fun. Like, without, our players, they come and see this for the first time and they're like, this is like Europe. And so for us, that is, from an optimization perspective, making sure those guys were taken care of and building something that they really deserve. Not to mention putting the biggest bar that we have right behind them, right? Like, let's take care of these guys first, because without the Bailey, you lose FC Cincinnati, right? Like, they are the heartbeat of the club. And so I think when we built the venue, I think number one, that was kind of a big sitting point for us. And then ultimately, as in that vein, fan experience, right? We want people to come there, not only have a great time, but also eat great food and, be able to move logistically throughout that building very easily. And so that component was certainly a big piece of it. The other thing I'll say is it is very nice, right? Like, I recently hosted some folks out of New York last year, and they'd never been to Cincinnati, number one, but number two, they'd never been to our building. And they got there and they're like, wow, like, this is actually really nice. And I'm like, yeah, we get that reaction a lot, right? But trust me, it is extremely nice. And then when they built the building, the other thing that I think that, to that perspective of Jeff and Carl and the team, when we built the building, was Cincinnati deserves nice things, right? Mm-hmm. We have a community here that wants a lot of premium. They want a great building to go and visit. And so in our venue, from a revenue perspective, we have more premium today than anyone else in MLS. Obviously, that's going to change with New York City coming on board and Chicago and Miami. Yeah. However, I believe we'll still be in second or third in premium seating in all of soccer in America. Outside of the NFL venues, I should say, like Atlanta and Seattle, and those guys have the NFL venues.
What's the total capacity of the stadium?
It holds about 26,000.
And what would be premium seating, like on a percentage basis? Or
so we've got 5 clubs in total. So about, I'd call it, so the entire west side of our building is premium. So if you walk into the west side of our building, it is all premium. So it has, our Tunnel Club, our Cincinnati Club, our Pitchview Club, and then ultimately our suites sit on top of that. We've got 53 suites, the most in any MLS venue by far. We've got 5 different party suites. And so for us, we optimize for premium and premium nice, if you will. And so, and then the east side of our building, we also have a premium club as well that kind of sits, if you're looking at it on TV, it is our camera angle. It is our First Financial Club. And then the way we think about it is if we could build more premium, we would. We're completely sold out. We're completely sold out. The wait list is gobs of people long. And I should also point out the other thing is, and I'll actually say this when you asked me the question a little bit, but it holds 26,000. We've got 21,000 season ticket holders with a 2,000 person wait list.
My goodness.
It is, we optimize our building to the best of our ability. But ultimately, from a revenue perspective, we continue to try to maximize that. We just built a speakeasy. That's a per game basis. It's an amazing lounge done by our real estate team here in-house. They just did a phenomenal job. And so for us, when they built the building, I think it was fan experience, optimizing on premium sales. And then ultimately, the other piece of this that I didn't mention is it is dead center of our city core. We sit in the West End neighborhood, which is right next to the Over the Rhine neighborhood, which for the longest time it's a historical neighborhood that has had billions of dollars of renovation where bars, restaurants, things like that are. And the West End was kind of neglected. That was sitting next to it. And so we have a community council that we meet with regularly. We have a community committee that we make sure that we take care of. A lot of the folks that work inside of our building live in the community. And the other thing is when Jeff, I'm not kidding you, Jeff literally knocked on every single door in the West End community and said, "What do you want out of the stadium?" And they said, "We want nice things. Like we want this to be a nice building where people come, they enjoy their time here, and maybe they stick around and have go to a restaurant and go to a bar." And so I think that is the other component of it as well, is the community and making sure we optimize for the community and what they needed. Because it was not an easy project, to say the least. It is dead center of the city, and getting those folks on board, I think, was the third biggest component of making sure the stadium worked out well.
Public-private relationships are so critical in any project like this. You guys have obviously done a really great job in establishing that and getting that support. And, it takes efforts like Jeff to go out and talk to everybody, right? A lot of people like to sit in their ivory tower, created wealth, or in a chairman or ownership position. I see that most success happens when individuals like Jeff, the broader team kind of, just level set with the population and get out there and understand what it is that they're looking for. So kudos to him and credit to him for doing that. And you can argue that, the American population soccer fan base here is really, really supportive, and they don't have this 100-year legacy, right? Like when you go to Europe and you start to do these things, you've got 80, 90-year-old people who have been supporting the club their entire life. And, it's even magnified to another level when you think about how do you engage the community? How do you, bring what they want into a venue? Talking about TQL, how many home matches do you all have?
So we have 17 regular season. We typically have, I would say we typically have about, call it, 25 matches total, home matches, depending on tournaments and things like that.
Okay. So a little less than 10% of the year is filled up with home matches. How do you as an organization think about leveraging the asset kind of on an annual basis, keeping in mind you have the Bengals in their stadium, you have, to your point, Nipper Stadium that's gone through some renovations over the years. There's an indoor arena where the University of Cincinnati plays basketball. So, it's not a city that doesn't have other venues that can attract concerts and other events, but perhaps the location is a key there, and the venue size may be a key. From a leveraging the asset, you have any idea of what number of events you guys are doing on an annual basis generally? Have you had success routing concerts into the venue?
Yeah.
Like, take me through outside of soccer and what that asset does for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, the building was designed to host more than soccer, right? I mean, when you design a building of that magnitude, you have to do more at the end of the day, right? Just from an economic perspective, you've got to be able to maximize days in the venue. We have our VP of events, Allison, does an amazing job, not only booking kind of private events, which I think we do over 280 private events last year in the stadium. We host about 30 plus soccer large scale events at the stadium, whether that's concerts, whether that's international friendlies, hosting the U.S. men's women's national team game. Our team there does an amazing job of booking, making sure we're looking at those things, making sure that we're in the conversation when concerts are coming to town. And so we've hosted, I'm trying to think of how many concerts we've hosted. We've probably hosted 6 concerts now. We're going to look to do a little bit more with the schedule change in the MLS here in 2027. So we'll have a window of summer essentially wide open. And, we do a lot of corporate events, a lot of like full scale for the stadium usage corporate events. We've hosted conferences where people use the suites at different rooms. And so they do a really good job maximizing the building. To be fair, I think even if I asked Allison today, she'd probably say we'd like to do more.
Sure.
Right. Because you want to just maximize, the way I look at it is 360 days a year. If there's not something going on in there from a revenue perspective, then we should be looking at ourselves a little bit. But they do a phenomenal job. We're trying to host other sports. We're working to try to get our first football game into the venue, which I think would just be an awesome opportunity. And so we are always looking for new things to go in the building. And the last thing I'll say is the biggest thing for us that's just tough, because at the end of the day, FC Cincinnati is our core. It is the most important thing that goes into that building. And the grass, the turf, the pitch is, it is gold, right? And so making sure that the pitch is in top quality for our guys as they go out there and compete is very, 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 it is natural grass. Don't ask me to tell you exactly what it is, because Mitch is our head groundskeeper. He's unbelievable. Matter of fact, our team won the voted by the players best pitch in the MLS last year. So they do a phenomenal job. But I couldn't tell you exactly what type of grass it is. But that is kind of the hard thing for us, right? Is how do you, from an economics perspective, when do you replace the field? When do you not? Is this worth it to have this event versus not worth it to have this event, based off of if you have to replace this field or not? And so all of that kind of goes into play for us as we think about outside events. We'd love to find out a solution to do more. And so that's something we're working on internally.
You just mentioned it there, the MLS, one of the big things that have unfolded in the MLS is the shift in the schedule to the European schedule being, fall, winter, ending in spring. Obviously, there's a number of things to consider when that change has happened. First and foremost, if this were next year or whenever that starts, but that first winter, there's a storm going across the U.S. right now, obviously that makes an impact. You all are in a cold climate environment, but in the summer when it's concert season and event season, all of a sudden you've got some vacancy now based on the schedule shift where you can do more. So maybe from a high level, just kind of general salient thoughts as it relates to the shift in schedule. Is that good for you all, for the league? And, how, what implications are you all considering that, may impact anything within the organization kind of going forward based off that?
Yeah, I mean, high level, I'm a fan of switching the calendar, and for a couple of reasons. One, 90% of our current calendar will be played in the new calendar. So it'll only be about 10% of the time that you'll really have those cold weather games. So, and then I know the league is working to optimize how if you're in Minnesota, how do you maybe go south and do all those things and the scheduling around that. And so, ultimately that will be fine. A couple of things that I think are just great for optimizing kind of this schedule change, which I think is perfect. One, player transfers, right? I mean, just as well as I do, that is the name of the game inside of the MLS. And that is where you win on the margins inside of the MLS. And in soccer, period. I shouldn't just say the MLS, that's just soccer, period. And so for us, switching to be on the same transfer window as Europe and the rest of the world is extremely important. It helps us, not only help get a better team, but also when we have athletes that we think could be sold to Europe or sold to wherever else across the globe, that we are in their window to want to buy, right? And today
Yep.
we are in a buyer's market when they are in a seller's market, and they're in a seller's market, we're in a buyer's market. And so for us, and this is just how FCC thinks about it. We're in the summertime, which is when the rest of the world is trying to buy, and we're trying to win a championship, right? So like, is that the optimal time to sell your players? Well, no, if you want to win a championship, right? Like if you have no desire to win a championship, then that's perfectly fine. And then we will also, back to it, like we want to win a championship and we want to buy in the wintertime. So when we go to spring training or, fall camp or spring, the winter camp, if you will, we want all of our team to be there, right? And so we want to be able to
Yep.
buy in the wintertime. And ultimately that helps us on the margins as well, just as thinking about like the player, discounts and things like that that you have to play within. And so I think that's a great positive. And like getting some of the best players in the world to come over here because of that, I think will be extremely positive. The other component is the TV revenue. Today, our playoffs, and I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe about 40% of TV revenue today, in the rights package, if you will, is based off of playoffs. Today, our playoffs compete against, college football, the NFL. We've got 2 international windows, so we have guys that like will go play for the national team and then come back to get ready for the playoff game. And so it's a
Yep.
little bit, that window kind of messes up a little bit. And then also from a fan experience perspective, it's like, hey, yeah, I'd love to come see you play, but also like the Alabama Crimson Tide is playing LSU, and like I'd really like to see that, right? Or like the
Right.
Bengals are playing tonight against the Steelers, and like I don't want to. And to be fair, like the NFL is a behemoth, right? Like you don't really want to compete with the NFL, and so I think the
No.
big component of this is switching our playoffs to May and having a direct correlation between first round the first week, second round second week, third round the third week, championship fourth week, you're champion in May, right?
Sure.
Um, and so I think that is really massive for us as we think about, getting casual fans to want to watch, doubling down on the, kind of the fans that we currently have. And then also from a TV viewer perspective, we're really kind of the only game in town, right? The NBA playoffs are getting started. NHL is getting started from a playoffs perspective. Baseball just got started. You're missing the opening day window, which is great. And so can you carve out this May window of this is soccer time in the U.S., right?
Right.
And so I think that will be extremely important for us. And I think it'll be a massive positive as we think about, the growth of the sport moving forward. And so, I'm super intrigued to see how it all plays out, but that's kind of my like high level view. And so at the end of the day, I'm a huge fan of what the league did.
That's great. And I mean, you said the growth of the sport, right? And obviously, Momentous, we're invested in the USL. There was an announcement yesterday that the USL
Yep.
Premier is coming online in their integrated kind of promotion and relegation system, which is a step forward, in my opinion, for just U.S. soccer generally. It even creates some of those player trading element
Yep.
alignments between the MLS and the USL. I don't see them as competitors at all. I think they're different products. I think they're different types of markets. Obviously, one is closed and one is open, which the closed system for the MLS has significantly, in a meaningful way, impacted positively club
Yep.
valuations without that relegation risk that you see in Europe. Going forward, there's the new schedule. You got the stadium in place. You made the move from the USL to the MLS, and it, based on kind of my knowledge and knowing you, there's kind of the next evolution for the organization and for the city of Cincinnati, and that's in kind of the mixed use real estate development opportunity that exists. It's
Yep.
there's public information out there about the project. Why don't you give us some context on the desire from an investment perspective, but from a club perspective as it relates to the environment? Why is developing this real estate adjacent to the stadium in the West End? Why is that critical, to all elements of FC Cincinnati going forward?
One of the short answers is economics, right? As you know
Sure.
better than anyone in the world, that building stadiums today is a massive driver for not only economic impact, but people and foot traffic and all those things. And the way we think about it is we built the stadium, we built this enterprise that people are coming to. We should make sure that we're capitalizing on kind of the opportunity around that stadium. I think, in recent years, especially, people are realizing that this is a great opportunity. Sports as a kind of the anchor asset class is an amazing kind of tenant, if you will, to all of a mixed use district, to not only maximize economics for the team and their owners and their LPs, but also for kind of the economic impact of the community. So I think the first thing I would say is kind of that component. I think the other is it just proves our ambition, right? I mean, it proves Jeff and our leadership and Carl the ambition to grow and to scale. And we believe Cincinnati deserves nice things, right? Like it is something that Cincinnati deserves and Cincinnatians deserve. For our project, we're building apartments, a hotel, some retail. They'll have a plaza there. The goal is to move our offices, FCC's offices, out there as well. And so really it's another of, hey, Cincinnati, West End neighborhood, they deserve nice things. Jeff went back and spoke to the community when we were going to build this project. And ultimately they said, hey, build nice things, right? I mean, that's, we deserve nice things too. And we deserve people to come pay taxes here and buy and want to live and work and play here, right? And so I think that's the kind of the other component of for us is like this community aspect of, hey, not only the West End community, Cincinnati, they deserve this. And then ultimately, I think the other piece is the ambition for us to grow and scale to a sports enterprise that we feel extremely comfortable with where we are from an ambition perspective, and then ultimately drive. I think Jeff says this all the time, we want to bring Cincinnati to the world through the game of soccer. And then ultimately when the world gets here, we want them to live, work, play inside of our community around the stadium. And so that is extremely important for us as well.
I love that. Like, share what you can or what you're comfortable sharing, kind of generally here. But the way that Momenta shows up to opportunities, we're looking, how do we participate as a minority partner? Let the Jeffs of the world go and operate that bad boy and be incredibly successful, and let them do their thing. And then also participate, on the real estate development, the stadium, the mixed use around it, with capital and with kind of value add expertise, to where that organization, that project, that kind of ecosystem is all owned and managed kind of by one entity, where you can really create synergistic opportunities. This flywheel. Is this project owned by Lion Ventures, the organization that owns, the club? Is the stadium under that structure? Like how have you guys plan that out with whatever you're willing to share, so that the audience can get a picture of how you guys are thinking about doing that?
Yeah. So our holding company, which is Cincinnati Sports Entertainment, owns today FC Cincinnati and TQL Stadium. So we own TQL Stadium and the rights to it, if you will. And so unlike, at the time, it really wasn't much of a public-private partnership, outside of we did a partnership with our local Port Authority. And so that component was really important to us to be able to control the building. So from TQL Stadium perspective, and we feel the very same way about the real estate project is we want to be able to control what happens, how it works, how it looks, how it feels. And so all that, the goal is for all of that to live under our holding company, which is Cincinnati Sports Entertainment. We've got amazing partners in Marquee, which is who built Gallagher Way right next to the Chicago Cubs facility. And so for us, it's go find really great partners to come alongside of you to build these great things. But at the same time, maximize the economics of the team and the enterprise, and making sure that all of that goes back to winning championships, right? Like for us, it's all these economics and, the dollars that you'll, kind of make off of this real estate project is to be able to go back and not only help our LPs but also help the appreciation value of kind of the overall holding company, the overall organization, because that's way more valuable than kind of piecemealing this thing together for us. Right. And so that's ultimately how we're thinking about this from that perspective.
Are you all, you mentioned Marquee, does the holding company basically partner with a master developer? Is that the plan here? Are those services in-house or a function
Yeah.
that you all can execute? Like, how have you guys thought about that from a development perspective? Because you do see, the alignment between team ownership,
Yep.
Stadco management, master developer is always critical. How have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, so we have our in-house team, which is our line ventures team.
Got it.
Real estate is a component of that. That's led by Chad Munitz, who is our chief revenue officer, but also our chief development officer, and leads that project alongside of Brandy, who kind of runs the day-to-day, if you will. And then Marquis is a consultant for us on the project and our partner, if you
Got it.
will, as we think about kind of development of this project. Um, and we wanted to be in house because we just felt that was best for us. It's not best for everybody, but that's how we felt best for us. And we lucked out in the fact that Chad came over to the club. He got there, I think, a year before I did. And he worked at 3CDC, which is kind of the public entity that redid downtown Cincinnati and also over the Rhine, put over $1.5 billion into those projects. And so it knows the public-private partnership extremely, extremely well. And so as he came over to FC Cincinnati, this certainly is a civic opportunity, but also private. And so Chad has done, just a great job of kind of running this project, if you will, and get it to the point it is today to be able to, we still are almost done with some pre-development work here. We have a really big hole in the ground. A lot of people probably don't know this, but in Cincinnati, at one time, more beer was made in Cincinnati than anywhere else in the country.
Wow.
And so there is a lot of beer tunnels under the ground in Cincinnati. And so our project is no different. So we had to dig out the beer tunnels so that we could even get started on this project. And so right now, I think we have a 30-foot hole in the ground. And so from project perspective, we're still in pre-development, if you will, and hopes to start shovels in the ground at the end of this year, or
You
middle of this year, I
all,
should say.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that come out of the ground. I think it's, it's a proof of concept executed by, a group that's doing fantastic, as it relates to the sport itself, to the stadium, obviously. What is, as it relates to the MLS, what is salient as it relates to some of key priorities, key initiatives? Are you all are you looking at your media deal? Obviously you had the package with Amazon. Can that improve? Like, what are general salient thoughts of areas improvements, things that are going well, as it relates to the MLS generally?
Yeah, no. To your point, yeah, we obviously have our deal with Apple. They've made
Apple,
some
excuse me.
they've made some. No, you're fine. They made some changes to that deal to, I think, open up to a broader audience, kind of like get more of the casual
Not
fan.
behind a paywall anymore, right? I think, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that'll be great to just kind of have the casual fans be able to watch the game. And then ultimately, I think the league itself is doing a lot of good things to kind of grow the game of soccer, right? Like the way I think about soccer today in the United States, when Jeff started FC Cincinnati, I believe this to be true. The top 10 sports in the country, like soccer was like number 10.
Mm.
Like I believe like women's figure skating beat soccer that year from like a viewership, not a viewership, but like a fan. I am a massive fan of this sport. Today, it is the third most popular sport in the United States. And so I think from that perspective, the MLS is continually to grow. And to be fair, I'll give credit to USL as well. I mean, say what you want about one or the other. The way I feel about it is soccer in communities benefits everybody,
Yep.
right? Like putting soccer teams in communities and having kids have a team they can pull for and root for benefits FC Cincinnati. It benefits the game of soccer. It benefits everything that we look to do. And so I think what the MLS is doing today is trying to be a better like thought leader of just the game, right? Get to the community, open up academies with these teams. How do you get to the youth level and making sure these either players become athletes or they become fans and doing those things. And I think that'll be extremely, extremely important kind of moving forward. I think this is the year of soccer, Kyle, right? Like this is
Yeah.
World Cup 2026. The world will be watching the United States and watching how we embrace the world's game. And so I'm very curious to see kind of the growth in the scale post World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hesitant to say it's going to be this like massive influx of everyone's going to love soccer. I hope that happens, but at the same time, I'm hesitant to say that just because, I think it will take time. I think this will be a huge, huge opportunity for, not only FC Cincinnati, not only MLS, not only the USL, but like just soccer in general to be able to grow and scale and be what I think it can be. But I think right now it's a slow game to continue to scale and grab fans as they are very, very young to continue to grow and grow and grow. I think the stat is like people choose their fandom by the age of 12. And so the youth, I think, will be extremely, extremely important for not only us at FC Cincinnati, but I think the league as well.
I want to get you out of here. This has been fantastic. I appreciate the candor on kind of some general questions. You mentioned, Lion and your group thinking kind of broader from a sports platform perspective. How do you think about that unfolding in the future? I recognize that the FCC is the core focus, should remain the core focus. You obviously have a large real estate development that's a big hole right now that's going to be coming out of the ground. So a lot of focus there. But, in my seat, the asset class of sports, as I've been in it for the last 36 months, is just unbelievably growth oriented. You're seeing more capital, both domestic and globally, moving into the asset class. You see some of the massive private equity groups that don't jump into asset classes that they can't make sense of.
Yeah.
KKR coming in with the acquisition of Arctos as an example. So there's a lot of movement. I sit in Europe most of the time, in Berlin. I see the activity on in broader Europe, outside of the UK, where a lot of focus in soccer kind of naturally goes, meaning a ton of opportunity over the next decade or 2 decades. If you take a step back and think from a macro perspective for your all's focus and where you want to grow to, like, how are you all thinking about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have to repeat this again because, and this, to be fair, Jeff, who's our CEO, has wild ambition. I mean, it is why we are who we are. And he has ambition to continue to grow. Lion Ventures was designed to be able to be this entity to help us grow and think outside the box, think about other things outside of soccer. And so
can I ask a question real quick? I don't want to
Sure.
throw you off. We'll kind of get back to that, but you've mentioned Jeff's ambition a handful of times now. You work closely with him. He's a close ally of yours. From a human perspective, what do you think are the qualities that Jeff has that allow him to go, we need to be ambitious. Here's an idea. Let's get from 0 to 1 and build on top of it. Like, what is that? Or what have you identified that are some unique elements that make him able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff's a startup founder. I mean, he has every trait of any good entrepreneur, right? Like, he has any trait of any startup founder. I mean, he is a wake up in the morning, run through brick walls. That's an obstacle, run through it. There is kind of no, the vision is kind of unbounding, if you will, for him. It's a lot of, how do I see this thing that I want to go capture. It's more of, how long does it take to get there, and what do we need, the steps I need to do to make sure that we're getting there? Because I know it's going to happen. And so I think that is like common traits that you see in really great entrepreneurs, for years and years and years. I think, for him, it's, I think for a long time, like, FC Cincinnati was a startup. I mean, to be fair, we still have a little bit of startup culture today. I think now we're trying to kind of mature a little bit from an operational perspective. But ultimately, we've got amazing leadership in place to let Jeff go run, right? Our CBO, our CRO, our CMO, they do an amazing job of kind of living in the day-to-day of FC Cincinnati, and then allowing like Jeff and my like crazy thoughts and crazy fantasies, and just say, okay, go look at those things, go try to do those things, and then allow us to run the day-to-day of the club, which has been just like an amazing thing for Jeff, I think. But Jeff has, to be fair, he has every trait of every great entrepreneur, of like, run fast, sprint, don't stop, run through walls, don't let obstacles get in your way. And the other piece that Jeff does extremely well, which is something that like I want to continue to work on myself, and I think everyone, I mean, relationships. He does an amazing job of understand who and why he needs to have a relationship with these people, trying to find new people to have relationships with. It is the name of the game, as you know, Kyle. I mean, it is
Name of the
something that
game.
I, like, young in my career, I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do every single day. It's something I think about every single day. I watch him be able to make phone calls and things can happen like that because of
Yep.
relationships, right? And
Got
so
it.
I think that is something that is extremely important to what kind of his success has been as well.
Let's go. I appreciate that context. Let's go back a little bit to kind of the asset class, the growth globally, the next 20 years. So how are you guys processing that and thinking about it outside of the core focus, with FCC today?
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure that out, to be fair. I don't want to say something that's not true, but it is certainly on our radars. It is certainly something that we want to continue to expand on. I personally think, and I know the rest of our team, sports as an asset class is still very early.
Yep.
Say what you want about private equity coming in. I think it's a very positive thing for sports.
Yep.
I think if you look at sports from an ecosystem perspective, for the longest time, it was just like this old school business that like people just owned and operated. It was just like this thing, and
Yep.
everybody loved it. It was like, this is my team, and this is great. I think over the past 5 to 10 years, people have realized that these are very complex, very sophisticated businesses. They've got reach that go far, far beyond what is today,
Mhm.
from like a personal consumer perspective. I think Ari Emanuel was on a podcast recently, and Ari mentioned that this sports entertainment is the anti AI bet. I truly believe that, right? Like I tell all of our team, I said, I'm not smart enough to really truly understand AI, but what I can understand is kind of human interaction and what humans want to go and do and see. And FC
Yep.
Cincinnati, Lion Ventures, I should say, wants to invest in those things. We want to
Yep.
find ways to capture the human element of it all. And then also, not to mention all of the amazing innovation that's going to be wrapped around that ecosystem, right? I mean, you're going to see technology jumping from everywhere of, how do you, computer vision, understanding broadcast data, media, consumer, how they, watch the game, how they, and so all of those things are going to be coming alongside of kind of this overall sports as an asset class ecosystem, if you will, that we want to make sure that we are kind of at the forefront of, not to mention, but also ability to be able to take advantage of some of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. The AI element, I'm almost saying it ad nauseum today that AI, is going to enhance the overall sports experience. It's not going to cannibalize it. There may be
Yeah.
efficiencies that can be created within organizations um, that have some impact on human capital, et cetera. But I don't think very much. And at the end of the day, humans are driven by this chemical called dopamine, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unscripted, having no idea what's going to happen.
It's the
The
best reality
in-person
TV.
experience.
It is the best
Yeah,
reality TV on television, right? I mean, like
no doubt.
you turn the NFL on, the amount of stories they put around it, it is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, like when so and so is dating so and so, my wife is like, "Hey, did you know that so and so?" I'm like, "Sure," but that is this ecosystem, that is this asset class that is going to continue to expand. And to your point, humans also like to just hang out. We like to be with other humans. We like to watch other humans, not only other humans, amazing athletes do things that like doesn't really make any sense. You go to an NBA game, I'm like, that guy is 7'2", but can move like a gazelle. And like it doesn't
Right.
make any sense. And so I think humans will always want to continue to watch that. I mean, we've been doing it for thousands of years.
Yep.
And so I think
Totally
as we
agree.
think about that from an asset class and from an investment perspective, there is an amazing, unbelievable unlock and valuation lock over the next couple of years and decades in our space, which I think is extremely fun and exciting, and I think it will continue to evolve over the next couple of years.
I tell people all the time, they're asking me, how do you like the work that you're doing in sports? I'm like, I get to work in the coolest environment possible. I mean, to be in this space, um, obviously we think through an investor lens, often return oriented. We have a fiduciary responsibility. Like all of those elements are key priorities. But for Kyle, it's like I could never imagine as a 12-year-old, like being a part of a sports franchise and helping impact communities. And it's just fun at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, yeah, people that buy sports teams, they don't buy it. I mean, they may buy it for the investment, but the fact is like they do it because it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm seeing that, I'm seeing American investors start to think about, allocating not just to US properties, but European properties or, MENA region properties in sports, because there's this travel element, this destination investment element. And so I think there's a ton of ways to layer in, from a capital perspective. You get to wake up on a weekend and say, hey, I've got these portfolio of clubs across the globe. I'm bought in literally and kind of literally bought in. And so for a place to be placing capital that's becoming more sophisticated every day, there's also this kind of intrinsic human element that brings joy through that kind of investment. And I think that can't be overlooked. It's certainly one of the things that resonates most with me.
And to be fair, it's a good bet too, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it is fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's what makes it exciting and fun. It is a good bet right now. I mean, I'm not a huge gambler by any means, but as I look at returns and you look at kind of appreciation value of these assets over the years and years, over the past 20 years, if you will, it's a good bet. It's something totally good to at least diversify your portfolio and to look at. It's not for everyone. But it is certainly something that I think everyone should be taking a look at. And I think more people will start to take a look at.
Two quick hitting questions here and we'll wrap. I appreciate the extended time that you've given me. Just curious, what's the most important thing on your desk right now as it relates to your core job, your core role? What is most salient? And it doesn't have to be some very acute detailed piece we got to get something out, but just generally, what's top of mind to you right now?
Yeah. For us, it's growing our brand globally. I think that's the thing we're at now, of making sure we can pick up more casual fans, more national fans. And then ultimately making sure that we're growing our brand. I think that's probably the club's biggest goal at this point.
Got it.
And so I think from a club perspective, that's certainly there. And then me personally, just making sure that I'm, continually look for ways to grow the club and grow the organization. I mean, that's, kind of my high level answer, if it will.
Yeah. If somebody wants to reach out to you today, you guys you have a big development coming up. Are you guys bringing in outside capital to partner with you all on the real estate development side? Is that true? Is there a way to reach out to you? Best way to contact you? I've started to see that there's been some matchmaking between our guests and our audience related to various opportunities here recently. So let them know how they can get in touch.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously feel free to reach out. I mean, I'm happy to take a phone call. No problem at all. And from the capital perspective, I joke that we're always fundraising, and I say that in a joking manner of, we want to find good partners. I mean, if there's people out there that want to invest in soccer and they want to find a good place with global ambition to continue to grow and park their dollars, yeah, of course. We want strategic people that can continue to help us grow our organization, and that's extremely important to us. And so the short answer is yes.
Got it. You can find Steven on LinkedIn. We'll post links to all the FC Cincinnati social channels. Be sure to follow them if you are in the Cincinnati area. I know that
you should. I implore you. You should come. You have to come. You have to come.
Go see the stadium, TQL, and what they've created there. Listen, I think first of all, you guys are doing incredible work in the space, both on the pitch, but also in the community, which you should be commended for. We appreciate your friendship, the growing friendship, between FCC and Momentous generally, between the two of us. And I know that you had maybe a red-eye flight overseas last night. So as it gets near just after 4:30 there in London, I appreciate you jumping on and spending an hour with me. And
of course.
Listen, if you're in the audience and you want to connect with Steven, I do have his phone number. So shoot me an email or text and I'll make the connection. But listen, really, really appreciate what you guys are doing. Appreciate the friendship. Enjoy the time in London, the women's match this weekend, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Cool, man. Talk soon. I appreciate it. Seriously.
Steven, thank you for breaking down not just how FC Cincinnati operates, but how modern sports organizations can think bigger, how they are thinking bigger, both as platforms, community anchors, and ultimately long-term businesses. I think this has been a incredible podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time from London to join us today. And thank you for everything that you're doing in the asset class of sports and to grow soccer both domestically and globally through FC Cincinnati. With that, I'm Kyle Israel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.